Well, I see you're dreaming again about gold.
This is the Scott River. Now this truly is hellish country. And here we have our finished emerald.
So just suck that gold right up. Welcome to Prospecting Class 3. Since the airing of our first two classes, there's been a number of questions, and we'll handle those. First of all, in Class 2, we made mention of finding pounds of gold in a crack. What is the most gold I know of coming from a crack? That's easy. That is 63 and 8 ounces. 63 pounds, 8 ounces of gold. That came from a crack on Cow Creek above Myrtle Creek, Oregon. And when I saw that, I determined that in my small-scale mining career, I was going to be all about the cracks. And that's what I did. You know about the crack that I found. I showed it to you in our prospecting class 2. There were many other cracks that we worked all along the river, but that's what I did. The second one is, how do you find a crack? Well, I showed you that in prospecting class 2. Now, at the time, we didn't have all the tools that I've showed you. I couldn't show you from an aerial back when we first made our first dredging movie some 15 years ago. But at that time, how you would find a crack and how you can find a crack in the desert is you're looking for vegetation. You've got the side of the river. You're going to look for vegetation that's in a line. Now, that vegetation denotes a crack because either the trees or bushes, what have you, are taller, greener, something. But you'll notice something on the sides of the river, and that's where you're always looking for a crack. Now, let's fill in the other side of the river. Now, the crack goes all... You could have a massive job to go through and excavate this entire crack. Save yourself a lot of time by looking upstream and trying to find out where the gold or the mineralization line is. That was taught you how to do that in another movie. I'll put a link to that up in the description. How to find a mineralization line, and today we're going to go over some metal detectors, what you would choose, and try to get through some of the nonsense we see in certain areas on that, so you can make an intelligent decision on what to do in a metal detector for gold. Find a mineralization line, and hopefully you'll be on the way. The second most asked question is, where are the maps you used in class 1 and the mineralization reports that you pulled up? Where do we get those? Well, I put links to those, to that basic map, in the descriptions in classes 1 and 2. I'll likewise do it here. And what you're going to want to do is pull up your report for whatever area it is that you're going to target, and you should be targeting an area within 400 miles of your home right now. And you're going to pull that up, and you're going to overlay the counties that's in the sidebar, or the roads, or terrain features, to get you in specific areas that you're going to be looking at. That's how you're going to use those materials. The third question we get is, where are we on TV? Well, we get about 3 to 6 scripts per year from TV shows to be on the various programs, whatever gold show it is. To date, we have taken none. I did make a pilot for tactical to practical many years ago. Unfortunately, the star, I think he was in a car wreck or something like that, and I forgot what the scenario was, but that folded before we ever got to air. But as for the gold shows, they always provide us with a script, unfortunately, where we're supposed to argue, fuss, fight, have some kind of drama with the equipment or whatever, and that's not what we do. We teach here. We've taught many thousands of people how to prospect, and if we ever get an offer like that, we'll take it. But I don't think that's going to happen, because they have to sell advertising and have an exciting show, and that's not what this is. Here's the good news. We have been hired to go out and prospect 3 different properties. Our fee is an ounce of gold a day with a 3-day minimum. That'll get us across the country. The contracts are for 10 days a piece. So in all, we have a $30,000 worth of contracts that we're going to fill. One of our contracts is a 20-acre piece in the mountainous areas of the West. Let's say it's California, Oregon, Washington State, that kind of area. One of our contracts is in the desert, and one of our contracts is in the Northeast, Maine, Georgia, North Carolina, you name it. What are we going to do first? What metal detectors are we going to choose, if any? What kind of equipment are we going to use? What are we going to do to fulfill these contracts? And you're going to ask these questions whether you're hired or whether you're working for yourself. You're simply going to have to go through all of these exercises and think about them before you ever leave the house. So let's find some gold. Let's find some gemstones. Let's find what is on these 3 pieces. All right, the first thing we're going to do with our properties is we're going to look up the materials that I presented to you in classes 1 and 2. We're going to pull up our mineralization reports, if there are any for that area. We know from those, from that class 1, that in the case of gold, our lines are going north and south. So if we have a report for somewhere up here, we're going to follow that right straight on down and hope that it comes through our target area. Now, this is going to work for any of the areas that we're looking for. We're going to pull up the NASA information that we can, the spectral imagery, and try to get an idea of what kind of materials we're looking at. Are they fine-grained? Is it gabbro? What type of material is it that we're looking at in the area that we're going to be prospecting? Step 1. Remember, we're going to try to find the materials before we leave the house. Next, we figured out a target area for property 1. Does it have water? Does it have moving water on it? If it has moving water on it, it simplifies things quite a bit, because if it has gravel bars, they are intense collection centers. We just have to figure out how to use the gravel bar and the layers in the gravel bar to figure out what we've got. Now remember, just because we have a gravel bar, we have a whole 20 acres, we're still going to have to prospect the rest of that too. But as for finding a material quickly, whatever that material is, this is going to simplify it immensely. Now for our desert piece of property, that's a little more complicated. We're going to look in various areas. First, what I like to do is I like to look for a gully. A gully is V-shaped. It gets you down to the bedrock very quick. A gully will feed a gulch. A gulch generally can be up to a quarter-mile wide, something like that. The gulch, not as deep as the gully, but the gully will get you down to pinpoints of bedrock quickly. Sometimes the gulch will as well. We need to figure out what type of material we've got in here. Is it pebbles? Is it caliche? You know, what have we got? The gully will feed a wash. A wash can be many miles wide. A wash can be virtually anything in terms of width, and it is usually filled with your sands, your lighter materials, and in some cases in the wash you can still come across bedrock. I'm going to look on the mountain ranges. I'm going to look for, if it has a mountain to it, a slope that decreases in angle sharply. These are dropout zones. And in some cases I walked along and actually found gold by eyesight. Now our properties in the east, we're going to be looking for the same things that we did in the west with the addition of igneous rock. We're going to pay close attention to that because in the east they are significant sources of gemstones, especially in the main area. And we know that also by going through our library. We're going to go through either online or what we've already assembled in materials from the past, various guides, whatever it is that we've gone through, and try to match up the property that we have with what has been found nearby in a guide. We know that we have a possibility then of that being on this particular property we're going to look for. In the desert, there's an additional thing we can look for when we're down here in a gully, a gulch, or a wash, and that is a certain kind of plant, a trumpet plant. As I showed you with the crack, anytime you find a line of these certain types of plants, they hunt mineralization, heavy mineralization. They are an indicator of material that your target of gold, silver, some kind of heavy material is either directly beneath them or nearby. So you need to pay particular attention to that type of a plant. Look for it in the desert. Now for our eastern properties, our western properties, whatever properties they are, we're going to start looking for dropout zones on a topo map. And I would suggest that when you're on a property or anything like that, at the minimum you have a atlas and gazetter in your possession, something that shows you the topographic lines. And it's as simple as this. Where the lines are tight, the materials are moving. Where the lines begin to separate and loosen up, these are your dropout zones. So if we're looking at lines across a river where they start to separate, the beginning of this process is the first place that we want to go. So we're going to identify those, we're going to mark them on the map for the property that we're on, whatever property that is. It's going to be one of the first places we go and check. All right, now we should have figured out by now what our target materials are on the properties involved. We know roughly where our dropout zones are, and now we've got to figure out some materials that we're going to take with us to prove this ground. All right, this is a simple sluice that Connie and I have been using for years. Simply throw this in any stream, shovel into it, and the riffles will separate out the heavier materials, gold, lead, whatever, platinum, whatever it happens to be. Now, if we take a motorized pump, put this between two pontoons, and we have a suction in that we're sucking up gravel out of a crack or out of a gravel bar or whatever, running it over this. That's a dredge. If we set this up on a stand, run water over it, and we shovel into it with a grate up here, now that's a high banker. If we take this same piece of equipment, turn it around, now these riffles catch this way, vibrate it, and put our material in. Now that's a dry washer. So this one simple piece of equipment is probably 90% of the older methods of finding precious materials, whatever they happen to be. Of all the questions I'm asked, the most that I have to deal with is about metal detecting, metal detectors. What is the best metal detector? What's the detector I found the most gold with? Well, that's easy. That was this unit from the 1970s, simple meter unit. Many pounds of gold found with this. In fact, for a time I supported myself with it. It's kind of funny, my mother used to say, you know, people said, well, what does your son do? She said, well, he's at the beach, and indeed I was at the beach, finding more gold in an hour than most people would be able to come up with in money for a month. But we couldn't really talk about it. Now, what is the best unit to use today? Well, we'll get into that. But first, let's try to make whatever it is that you have in your hands right now work on this project that we're building out west and in the east. Now, Dr. Gerhard Fischer founded modern metal detecting with his metal scope, shortened to M-scope, in the Fischer line in the 1930s, when he discovered that radio waves would bend or be distorted over certain magnetic anomalies or of the earth, or certainly over power transmissions, things like that. Now, in the box, we're going to have transistors for our radio. We're going to collect and send through a coil that we have on the end of our metal detector. This coil can be in the D design, the double D design, or in a simple round pattern concentric design. And of course, within the box, we're either going to have a speaker coming out, this one doesn't have one, a meter, and a jack to get our sounds out so that we know whether we've hit a target or not. All right, we're going to base our frequency, whatever frequency that is, out of our transmitters, and let's just pick 14 kilohertz. We're going to base that on 22 inches of wire. And that's what we're going to wind our coils with. All right, these are two coils. We have a 9.5 and a small sniper coil. Each has 22 inches of wire in it. Now, a light bulb should have just gone off in your head. Now, if I wanted to find the tiniest pieces of gold, which of these metal detectors would I use? Well, of course, I would pick this one, simply because it has the smallest coil on it. It's the most sensitive. It doesn't matter what the brand name is. It's all about the coil you choose on whatever machine you have. And in fact, for the price of the very top of the line unit, over $7,000, you could have all of these units and have the very best of metal detecting no matter what ground you came into. What do we need to consider? Well, we need to consider whether any manufacturer's product that we're looking at has the coils that we need to go out and find the materials we're looking for. Now this is a double D coil, and this is a concentric coil. Let me explain the difference. A double D coil is typically wound in a D shape. The center section is hot, so we're going like that. With a double D coil, it's a little less sensitive than the concentric coil, which is simply a winding. And being a little less sensitive, it will handle mineralization better. Now, we can make this coil smaller, and since we have the same amount of wire going through the smaller coil, it gets progressively more sensitive to smaller targets. If we do that to the concentric coil in general, the concentric coil will be the most sensitive to small targets, and it will also have more depth than the double D. Unfortunately, we can't always use that in all situations because the ground, the iron ground, will simply overload it. Okay, so we're all on the same page. Tonight, after you've viewed this material, I want you to take your metal detector, whatever it is, you're going to turn the sensitivity all the way up. Now this rock here came from the west, and ground balance wise it's at 81% mineralization. Got a lot of black sands in it, and I'm holding the manual ground balance, and this is how, when I say you're looking for a mineralization line, this is how you would do it with a Gerard. Alright, let's go ahead and re-ground balance. Alright, now I'm going to put a number of targets up here, and so we're all on the same page. I just want you to use lead fishing weights. Okay, go out and rob your fishing weight selection down to 1/8 of an ounce so we can all compare our metal detectors. Don't flatten them, don't do any of the normal things that people tell you to do, because if you do that, then we can't figure out what we're all metal detecting with. I've got them all the way down to 1/8 of an ounce. Okay, let's see what we can find. Now, so we all know what we're talking about. Let's just take our little 1/8 ounce, put it down over the 80% mineralized block. Stopped. There we go. Got it now. I would pick that up, and just for grins, let's take and see where that falls on the length of that coil. Usually this is going to be about the max depth you're going to find for a nickel. Pretty close. So that's a pretty good coil to use for gold. Alright, this is the White's MXT Pro. We've got the small shooter DD coil on the end of it. I'm in prospecting mode. I've got the gain up to 3. I've got the self-adjusting threshold down to 0. And I've got the threshold up so you can hear it. Now let's see if it'll find that little nugget. No problem. Gives me a target. Tells me what the ground reads. Now if you're out in the field with your headphones on, this change is about what you're going to be looking for. Now this is an old Discovery flea market special, Discovery 3300. I really don't know how to use it, just picked it up for, you know, little or nothing. Let's see. It too is picking that up, even over the mineralized ground. That may shock a lot of people, but, and there it's picking that up as a good target. All right, we're back on our claims. East, west, doesn't matter. There's a saying that the old timers had I want you to remember: red touch yellow, happy fellow. And that goes back to our granite greenstone terrains that we covered in our first prospecting class. Anytime you have different colors touching each other, especially red on white quartz, that denotes iron ore, or yellow, that's sulfur, and that goes back to the sulfur, the ball-bearing transport we talked about in our first class. Red touching yellow, gold indicator. Trumpet plants, gold indicator. So you're going to be looking for the same gold indicators that the old timers look for to prospect. You're going to be looking for these changes in terrain. They look for that. Okay? Back in the day, who found the most gold? Well, it was the Egyptians and the Incas. No geologists back in their day. All right, they had a nose for gold, and that's what you want to develop as a prospector during the 1800s. Very few of them were geologists, but they had common sense in looking for gold indications, and that's what you want to develop from these three classes that we've been through thus far. You should be getting a good feel for what you need to do out in the field. Good luck to you. Good luck in your prospecting, and I hope all your rainbows are gold.